Welcome, everybody, and we are continuing with our festive SCA Success season. Very happy and very proud to have Rumbi join us today. So, Rumbi and I go back some way around, I suppose, Mentor AKT and then Mentor SCA. And I'm just so happy because you have scored a crazy score, 107. Firstly, congratulations, and it's lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your journey, firstly, into general practice before we kind of hit, I suppose, the game changers for the SCA. What's your journey so far?
So my journey is I am a mature student. So what I did was I grew up in Zimbabwe, which is in Africa, and I came to England when I was 18, where I worked as a nurse, and I fast-tracked as a nurse all the way up to band seven very, very quickly. And then at that point, I had to make a decision. Do I do medicine? I mean, do I become a nurse consultant and
Yes.
do a PhD or do medicine? And I did medicine, and that's how I ended up where I am now. And now I'm a doctor and in PhD.
And soon to be CCTing and an amazing doctor too. But you and I know each other pretty well, and I know you've had quite a challenging journey throughout that GP aspect of, especially like the AKT and the SEA. You've had a few personal health challenges. I don't know if you mind just kind of sharing a little bit about your journey, because I know the AKT kind of knocked you a little bit for six, didn't it?
Oh, totally did. So definitely. So I think what happened was I was diagnosed with dyslexia in medical school. And actually I learned to deal with it in that way. But then when I went into the first wave, and I was working in an accident and emergency department, I got ill from COVID. And since then, I've just never been the same. I had some organ damage, etc., and just my function was never the same. Took some time off work, actually, probably a year, and have been supported through what was supposed to be a 3-year journey has now become almost a 7-year journey.
Wow.
Um, and so it's been quite a challenge in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, but I'm here now.
Absolutely, and still smiling. And I have to say, you've got this amazing energy. I really enjoyed having you on the master class, but our one-to-ones, I always look forward to teaching. But with you in particular, there was something very special about your energy, I have to say. And I know, at the end, I knew you were going to get this in the bag. Actually, that for me was a given. But that score was fantastic, and I hope you don't mind me sharing just with the audience just the breakdown because it's just so impressive. I mean, I appreciate you may have failed at a station, but despite that, your data gathering dropping only 4 marks is crazy. That's a really high score for clinical management, and obviously you're playing to strengths in terms of relating to others. Maybe we can break this down a little bit just for our audience, because I think a lot of people and our listeners out there will be a bit disheartened with the recent results that have come out. They're now kind of thinking, oh my goodness, more SEA practice over Christmas, a resit in the new year, and the energy will be quite low. But this is such an attainable exam. Data gathering, what do you think? What are your game changers? What are your top tips for our audience here?
I think the data gathering, the fail, for example, I think the key thing there was there was something that was there and I knew it was something that was just missing and I could tell from
Mm.
the conversation I was having. But at the time in my mind, I just couldn't click or couldn't recall what exactly it was. And what I decided at that point was, you know what? It is what it is, and I moved on.
Yeah,
So despite that fail, I actually passed that station.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so the moral of the story is sometimes even when you know, and not necessarily a blank, because it wasn't that I reached a blank, when you know that you don't know something or you don't remember something, you either just say, I don't know, I'll look it up or something in those
yeah,
lines, but you need to move on.
yes,
You need to move past that because you'll be wasting time or you will freeze or psychologically it will
yeah,
affect you and
yeah,
emotionally. So you need to do that because I think time is of the essence and
yeah,
and the clock is ticking.
yeah,
So I would think the data gathering, the key thing is have you covered the differential diagnosis?
yeah,
Have you gathered enough to make a safe and a fair
yeah,
diagnosis? And have you gathered enough for your patient to start making a shared management plan.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is so important, is it? Because often when people are moving forwards, they'll suddenly think, "Oh, I forgot to ask this particular question, or maybe one red flag, or maybe I should have asked about smoking." But actually, if it doesn't change the grand scheme of the direction of travel, you have to keep moving forwards. I mean,
That's right.
it's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Case
Because there's so
priming,
many other marks to gather.
absolutely, especially in clinical management, which is way to 1.5 times more marks. We talked a lot about case priming on previous interviews. Maybe for our audience, you can explain what your understanding of case priming is, because that's quite sentinel in maximizing good marks for data gathering.
Yes, and I think the SCA is an amazing exam in the sense that they give you a lot. Sometimes they give you a lot of information in advance, which you have to read.
Yeah,
And I think part of the exam is they want to know that you can gather that data because that is part of data gathering. Actually,
exactly.
the
Right.
exam has started before you start speaking. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yes.
I love that actually. The fact that the exam has started before you start speaking. Those 3 minutes have to be used really wisely. You
Wisely,
think,
exactly. So
why am I
that's
being
where
given
the
this
data gathering
information? Yeah,
starts.
exactly.
In fact, the shared management plan starts there because sometimes you can see that, for example, duty of candor or mistake has been made, and you're like, oh, dilemma.
Yes. Oh, I love that word. I'm so glad you mentioned it. I thought we were going to come to
Or a
that in a second.
challenge. This is
My
going to be
favorite
an
word.
interesting shared management
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
and actually, when you know there's a dilemma or you know there's a result and you need to break bad news, and the question is, where are you in that journey?
Exactly.
And so don't waste time sometimes doing additional data gathering or don't do additional.
Yeah.
Where are you in that journey? If this is what this is conversation is about, within 2 minutes,
Do it.
that
Do it. I'm
allow the
so glad
patient,
you mentioned that actually. Because I
allow the
think, yeah,
patient exactly to react, to allow for that conversation to follow. You
yeah,
can always data gather and get enough cues afterwards in terms of
exactly.
where do we go from here.
Yeah.
But my point is, you haven't wasted time
Mm.
because the risk is you get to the end and then you break the bad news and you
Yeah.
haven't left enough time for all of that to happen in
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
consultation.
And I
Yeah.
and I and I stress this so much on the masterclass that actually, I mean, in real life, if a patient's had an investigation, then guess what they want? They want the results of their investigation. You know, in breaking bad news, you can't be assessed on it until you've actually broken the news. So why hang on to the result? So this analogy of the car journey and the doctor getting into the driver's seat, understand your place in that journey. What has happened before you get into the driver's seat? So this, I suppose, brings us quite nicely on to clinical management because they talk about time management a lot, and you've already highlighted the importance of using your time effectively. But what were your game changers for, I suppose, clinical management? Any?
Oh, shared management plan, shared management plan. When you realize, okay, the key thing is you need to be safe and
Mm,
you need to prioritize and you need to decide what is it that you definitely cannot leave the station without. If it's a safeguarding station, you can't leave the station without safeguarding.
exactly.
So and I hope I'm saying it in a very generic way without
Yeah,
giving away anything. But my point is, what is the crux of the station? Um, and what is it that if you need to be safe or you need to be a good doctor, what do you need to have done before you leave? In
exactly.
real life and in SCA, you don't have to cover everything, but
Mm.
you have to cover.
You've got you've got to commit to risk. This is the key, and this is what we talk about so much on the masterclass and with my mentees. That unfortunately, I mean, in real life, you can sort of hide behind an investigation or an examination. You don't have to make a commitment. But in this exam, as you say, if it's safeguarding, you've got to commit to risk. You've got to commit.
You've got to do it, and you've got to know if this is where we're going. You need to allow enough time to do that.
Exactly.
Needs to be, and actually it needs to be patient-centered. I know it doesn't always have to be patient-led, but patient-centered.
Centered.
And I
And
think when you enter the conversation, it's not about what you want. It's
yes,
your job as a doctor. Well, definitely, I believe, is you are there to facilitate the healthcare journey of the patient, whatever that might end up being. And
exactly.
if they're saying no and they have capacity, your job is to make sure they have enough information to make that capacitous decision. Your job is not to convince them to
Yeah.
you around your
Your agenda.
own agenda.
Yeah. And this brings us, I suppose,
Exactly.
very nicely on to relating to others, because I think what you've alluded to very eloquently is if we're there to facilitate a patient's journey, we have to be invested in ICE, we have to be invested in cues. especially
Yeah.
in this exam, because actually the simulators, they are trying to help you with cues. What's the importance of the cue, do you think, in relating to others?
And sometimes patients can give you cues very, very importantly. I remember you used to say to me when I had this problem around eyes, which we worked on
Yeah,
quite well, is one of the things that you said to me was don't park the cue.
yeah,
And also in an exam, and I know because I've had an education hat on. When you set exams, there's intention. The
yeah,
scripts are written for a reason.
exactly.
The station is written for a reason.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
spend hours designing this,
yeah,
and in some ways, it's even rehearsed, it's even
yeah, of
tested,
course.
etc.
Yeah,
So when people say things, when they give you allow for the 3 minutes, allow the patient to give you the information they've done. Somebody's worked hours to give you that information. And then when you do that and they give you a cue or they give you information, unpack it because there's a reason they're giving it to you.
exactly. Exactly. I
Uh,
love this because it is all about to pass this exam. Why am I being given this information? Why are they saying that? Why are they acting that way? I
yes,
love this. Unpacking it is so key because, I mean, just strategically, because as you say, with an educator's hat on, we spend literally hours trying to standardize these exams.
exactly. Yeah,
And we get our actors and our simulators to play things out in a certain way or say things in a certain
exactly. Yeah,
manner.
yeah.
It's like, why would you park that in a standardized assessment? It doesn't actually make any sense.
Any sense, yeah. And in real life as well, people drop things, whether it's the door handle thing,
Exactly.
where they park, they say something as they're walking out, or as they're
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, was this the actual agenda? You know,
We'll forget about real life because sometimes we
yeah,
just don't have
exactly.
time.
That hot stick moment where you're like, oh, this is what they
I
came.
know, I know, I know.
But my point is that's an example of a cue. And in real life, they do come
Yeah,
sometimes that way. So you need to follow the cue. And I can't emphasize that. Even in your shared management plan,
yeah.
if the patient starts asking you questions, there's a reason. Even if you have an agenda to discuss, if they're asking you questions about, answer it because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
So
Talk
follow
about it now. Don't talk about it later. There's no later in this
exactly,
exam. You've got to talk
exactly,
about it now, right?
exactly,
All
exactly.
these amazing messages you've taken away. I'm so happy for you, Rumbi. And it's kind of come full circle, I suppose, because I know that your trainers, um, Emma and Sabitha, were actually my old students. Emma from the old MRCGP days, which just shows how ancient I am, and Sabitha from the CSA days. But now you've come through, and I'm just so happy. It feels like the job is complete. What is the plan post CCT? When are you CCTing, by the way? Because the 7-year journey now is coming to an end, thank goodness.
Fingers crossed in 2025.
Well, what can stop you? There's nothing that can stop you now, surely.
That
You're
is
on a
very
roll. You're on a roll.
that is very, very true. As my family say, the hard work has been done. I think what I'm gonna do, which sounds very, very weird, is for a very long time, especially through this journey, the last 4 or 5 years, I have lived my life around work. And I think it's now time to work around my life.
I love that.
And reach that balance. So post CCT, I'm very open-minded to all of the gifts that I've been given. I know I have different ways, education, um, uh, just you know, just working on a macro level, etc. I have leadership, all sorts of things. So I'm very open to doing things in a different way. And I'm really excited because after CCT, actually, from now on, let's not wait till CCT.
Yeah.
I am going to now enjoy life. I'm going to be a sister. I'm going to be a grandchild. I'm
Yeah.
going to be a friend. And I'm going to be a partner. And I hadn't been doing that very well. I'll put my hands up
Yeah.
for the last few years, but I'm looking forward to that now.
I'm looking forward to that for you too, and I could definitely do a better job of all of all of those things myself. To to be on, maybe not a sister, but definitely the other stuff. But
That,
definitely work on that. And I think that kind of leaves us with, do what you love because you love what you do. It goes so
that,
much beyond just this notion of um, exams, doesn't it? And I think your energy is just infectious, and I'm really hoping that our audience will feed off this because such an attainable exam if you've got the right attitude.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. And the one thing, sorry, can I just say
yeah, of
this?
course.
Yeah,
Mm,
is the one thing I've learned in this journey is you need to know yourself. Be
yeah,
brutally honest with yourself. What are your weaknesses? What are your
mm,
strengths?
mm,
And how much time do you need?
yeah,
If you have reasonable adjustments, have them in place when you have illness. Because when you prep for the exam, you need to actually work on the weaknesses and have an intentional plan around it. Otherwise, you go into the cycle of failing, failing, failing.
yeah.
And when you prep, you need to prep with people who are honest with you and who will tell you and will help you through that journey because it really makes a phenomenal difference and yes and they will tell you the hard truths. You will work on the hard truths and you will pass.
You will. That's what we specialize in. Hard truths, that's for sure. Tough love is love all the same.
But
As
it
I
makes you a
say,
better doctor at the end of the day as well.
I always say there are only two currencies you can pay within this world, honesty and transparency. But throw in some humor, some sincerity, self-awareness,
True,
sympathy,
very true.
recipe for success. Rumbi, small world in general practice. Promise you'll keep in touch with me. And
Yes,
anything I can do
will
to help
do.
you,
Thank you.
you let me know. And I'm sure we'll
So,
see each other face to face, no doubt soon.
no problem. Thank you so much,
No,
Nigel.
thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything
Take care.
you've done for me.
No problem. Have a great Christmas. Take care.
Thank you, you too.